Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome, welcome everybody. Alex Panamarev, Gregor, Mohamed, Christina DeLuca, Vikas, Charles, Paris, Dorcas, Liza, Ruth, and the enlightened writer. Welcome all of you. I hope you're all having a great week. Let's wait for John. John's coming in about 2 minutes. And then we're going to roll. For those of you interested, John and I have co-authored 2 articles. One article, part 1 and part 2 of We Don't Know. And today we are discussing that duo of articles. Wow, there you are.
Here I am, my friend. How are you?
Good.
Good.
You're ahead of time, man. You're quick.
I am.
You definitely are. Welcome, John. So good to see you.
Good
Look,
to see you.
they have,
Very
they
nice.
have a couple friends.
How we doing? Hi, everybody.
Everybody.
Hi.
What I really enjoy these names. They have like the enlightened writers here.
Yes.
Enlightened writer. John, tell me,
Mm-hmm.
you just dropped part 2 of our article.
I did.
We don't the value of we don't know.
Mm-hmm. I sure did. It's exciting.
So to kick things off, why is it valuable? What's the value of not knowing?
I think that I think in a certain sense in business, I think building a business, operating a business, building a product, building a service offering, all of these things, I think they exist with a huge degree of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I think certainly on the product and service or offering developing side of things, marketing as well, you're dealing with all this uncertainty around uh will the customers want to buy the thing that I'm offering?
Right.
Even if they have a need, if it's a physical product, okay, well, we know they have a need for this, but then will they want, our company's version of that thing? A lot of uncertainty, and a lot of strategic bets and investments that need to be made along the way to do that. I think the building of a company is very similar in that I think while companies, a thing I say a lot is companies are becoming tech stacks and we are all becoming companies, right? Well, even as the companies become much more kind of technologically inclined and technology present, I guess I would say, um, you know, the human layer is still the fundamental. And I think in terms of looking at um, the building of the organization and maybe defining the purpose for the organization and the things that need to be done. And so I think there's a huge degree of uncertainty there. And I think in a lot in for many ways of looking at it, the best companies that I've worked with, the best companies I've studied, the best companies I think that we've all probably looked up to over the years, those companies tend to be the best at dealing with that uncertainty, at putting out uh, customer fires, investor fires,
Yeah.
operational fires,
Yeah.
product mishaps, all of the above. So I think in a certain sense, the question of knowing or not knowing is kind of foundational to entering the building of any business, much less building one in this current age, which of course the article is really focusing on
Yeah.
reality of building in an AI what AI fluent, AI first, AI native, AI this, AI that world. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's my
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. I mean, you have your perspective. I have a very similar perspective or the same perspective. I just use different words. For me,
yeah, of course.
companies are, I we look at them as temporary technologies to deal with, as we put it, manage or deal with uncertainty,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Um, and I think the temporary aspect is very important.
Hmm.
But looking at AI, what I would like to do in this session, because otherwise it's just like we're just reciting the article and it's super boring because people can read it, right?
Sure.
So I thought I'd bring with me my favorite 8 guiding principles.
Okay.
Organization, I don't give I don't give the answer to you. I give you the question or
Okay.
the signal, the prompt,
Yeah. Sure.
you tell me what you think or what comes to mind, okay?
Interesting.
So
Hey, I
let's
like.
start let's start direct.
It.
Let's, just being very spontaneous. Let's start with number 1, which I think is
Mhm.
most important. It's called emergence,
Okay.
right? So emergence, or how are solutions created?
Hmm.
Thinking of a thinking of a solution to a problem a company has identified. The problem being, target markets, misalignment, or there's either a gap or there's a not so obvious gap.
Yes.
What comes to mind when you think about emergence, like, if you now tie it together with AI, like, think of the organization as you understand it, and then how does that translate to an AI first organization?
Well, I think when I think about um uh just so I'm clear, so when you're talking about emergence, you're talking about
Mm,
we're emerging ourselves into a set of problems that need to be solved, and it really, and the company is basically there to solve a certain set of problems, certain production problems, go to market
yeah,
problems, whatever that may be, and so then we're saying, okay, so what do we think about with AI and building an AI native or AI first company, relative to this kind of the fundamental question of why build a company, really is to solve these problems. So here's what I think first and foremost. Number
yeah,
one, the quality of the AI system that you build, the quality of the agentic teams that you build,
yeah.
uh, uh, are largely dependent on the depth and quality of your understanding of the problem that the company is trying to solve.
Mhm.
I think I think depth of human experience, or the extent to which maybe a person or team of people have sought to study the particular problem that the company is trying to solve. There needs to be great understanding on that front. And then when you're building out the systems, you need to say, okay, well, I tend to look at AI systems and building of agentic teams as I might very well look at, okay, well, what if I could just go and hire the 20 smartest interns I've ever hired in my life? Or what if I could just go and hire the best, hardest working and most curious and responsive set of, first year analysts that anyone would ever want to work with. And so then I say, okay, well, if I was going to hire those people and I wanted them to go do all this work for the organization, such that I, on executive or something, can go and look at the larger problems or look at how to grow the business or whatnot. Um, I would say then that I have to think about uh, what is all the context and the data and the
Very good.
and information
Very
and,
good.
and
One of
questions.
the magic words. Yep.
What are all the questions that need to be answered, and what is all the context that need to be given to those agents so they can go and perform the work that I'm asking them to
Yep.
perform to solve whatever, subset of problems that they're trying to solve within a particular division of the company.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
Great. That's great. You hit it on the spot,
Yeah.
or the nail on its head, and context exactly.
Mhm.
You said it correctly. There's another magic word. Don't
Mhm.
worry. This is not the Price is Right. We're not searching for words like, give me a word with N, or Scrabble or something, but intent, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Intent, intent, alignment. So, and then very important, the understanding that with AI as emergence is one of its core properties,
Mhm.
people allow themselves to not know the organization to not know, because in most organizations, there's all across the board when you look at the processes when they come into existence, one or when they're spawned, um, a new person is hired, a new role, can be anything. There's always this expectation.
Mhm.
There is no, because companies don't want to hear that. Your superiors don't want to hear that. I don't know. Give me remember, right, when you work in a company or you supervise people,
Mhm.
bring me solutions, don't not problems, right? That's what they say.
Correct.
Even in the movies, they say like, bring me solutions, not problems. I hired you to do your job, blah blah blah, right?
Right, and I think it's interesting. I think it's a balance, especially relative to, consulting and advisory work,
Yeah,
where you have to set expectations as to what's possible, what you believe
right,
is possible,
exactly.
in the particular problem you're trying to solve. Um, but I also think you have to understand that oftentimes as you seek to solve one problem, you are then confronted with a whole other set of problems that need to be solved that are often people oriented, role oriented, training oriented,
Yes.
um, data data lack of data cleanliness oriented. Um,
Yeah.
and so there's this question then where you say, okay, so we sought to solve we sought out we started out to solve a particular problem. Then you get into it and you understand more of the variables and you say, okay, well, we still have to say, we still have to figure out a solution to that problem, but maybe the actual solution that is immediately achievable looks a little different than what you thought it might be before
Yeah.
you understood all the variables. Inevitably it will, right? And so I think there's also this challenge of knowing knowing when to stop. I think this is important with AI too. Knowing when to stop allowing the problems to just kind of compound on themselves, knowing when to
Yes.
also stop the interesting ideas for what could be next and next and next, knowing when to stop that process with your
Right.
models
Right.
and say, okay, great, stop, take everything you have here and figure out, okay, what is a what is a real solution that will get the most number of the stakeholders
Mm.
to the happiest place possible in the immediate. So you still solve for
Very good.
something, but then what
Right.
you're also saying is okay, and these are the reasons we can't get to this other place, but that can come next. But first we got to do this and get this win and then move to the next. That's so much easier said than done. But I
Yeah.
also feel like that's like the constant cadence of any consulting or advisory engagement as well.
I agree. And to put everything you said into order, right?
Mhm.
There's known nouns, right? There's unknown nouns, known unknowns.
All
There's
of it.
known unknowns, right? And until like, I think a year or so,
Mhm.
and whenever I stood in front of in class in front of students to teach
That's good.
this, I thought I always could make sense of myself, like known knowns and even unknown unknowns, and then known unknowns. But then when I thought about unknown knowns, I thought like, yeah, maybe something, what is that, right?
Right.
Something that I'm aware of, but I don't know. But that's the inverse, right? That's more like
Mhm.
I someone else knows something that I don't know, right?
Right.
And I think that's so dangerous in a way.
Right. Right, and so inevitable. And I mean, like, I mean, that's the constant, is that you're
Right.
which is also that I think it gets into the importance of documenting what it is that you know, what are the variables that you don't know, given what those variables are, if they're X, Y, or Z, then how does that potentially change things? It's a lot, and to me, all of that is just very much about expectation setting with
Yeah.
the company. Because it's not
Very
just
good.
about like, oh, you're a consultant and a client. It's also about you're a team leader and you're saying, okay, well, in order to keep the team with you and motivated and happy and wanting to go along and do the hard work, like you
Yeah.
have to set expectations accordingly and
Mhm.
be, communicating all of like communicating what we do know and what is happening that is positive and forward moving. And then what do we not know that could really just screw the whole thing up and and go there. Interesting. David says because no one sees the yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
No, and what I would also say, David, is there's that there's that phrase. Um, there's what there's my version of the truth and your version of the truth, and
Yeah.
then the actual right. It's something like that. I'm butchering it a bit, but it's some it's there's there's all these different versions of the world. Um, and oftentimes the version seems to change depending on what the priorities
Yeah.
are for the particular groups.
Very good. Let's get into because we have 8, right? I have 7 more principles.
Okay.
Principle 2 is composability, okay? Composability or how are capabilities organized, right?
Hmm.
So, capabilities as in its simplest form,
Hmm.
right? The company basically is about 2 things. It's about resources and capabilities.
Yes. Great.
If you look at it very, very simply.
Yes.
What do you make of that when you now throw AI in?
I think that I think that first of all, I think that's true. I think when people talk about like kind of like first principles, that's like comment. Oh, we got to go back to first principles. First principles around this workflow. First principles around our view of the investable market. Like whatever. We're always talking about first principles.
Right.
I think to your point that the company is really there to solve a problem and then to produce a certain set of
Mhm.
a certain set of consistent results and outputs from that problem. It's really a production machine in a sense. Now, I've basically spent
Yes.
my career in manufacturing, so that certainly aligns with my thinking and experience. But in terms of capabilities, what I would say is I think that I think that the ability to build AI native departments within companies and potentially full companies that are where all the workflows and all the back end and operational work has been projected through these models and is effectively using uh, agent teams in conjunction with the human teams
Yeah.
in various capacities. Sometimes it's like it's to augment what the human can do. Sometimes it's just to go do all the work itself. Um, I think that the thing that excites me about capabilities right now is that I think a lot of the things that you and I have spent our whole careers looking at operationally in terms of developing more capability and skill. I think if the models are trained on the right data and have the right context and whatnot, they can just take care of a lot of that. And there are a lot of problems that you and I have thought a lot about over the last 20 years of our lives or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
that are no longer worth taking our time to think about. And so when I think about capabilities and what's exciting to me about that, it's less about the capability of an agent or a model to be deployed across a set of problems in a company. And it's more this question of what is the entire world of new human capability when all this other stuff is taken away and suddenly we're just focused on the last mile of the problem we've been trying to solve our whole careers,
Yeah.
or when we can learn new areas of specialization, all the polymath conversation. Like I don't know all going to become polymaths, but do I think we're all going to develop
Totally pulling
different
mass.
yeah, I think that's interesting, but I think, yeah, I think the capabilities thing, I tend to end up thinking more about what type of new capabilities would the company like to be able to build. And I think the world's greatest companies, the world's, I should say, hardest working, most innovative companies, controversial companies like Amazon, like SpaceX, like some of these, like Tesla, I think they will, I think those are the companies where they will be looking at what are the new capabilities and capacities we can build for the company to then enter entirely new markets. And to me,
Right.
you know, the student in me is very excited to see that happen. But
Yeah. Me
yeah, that's
too. Me too. And I think where it gets really interesting is that I had this discussion, I
mhm,
think, plenty of times because early on it was not really clear to me in the business way or in the business sense
mhm,
whether AI is more capability or resource.
mhm,
And I sat down, I thought maybe it's just too obvious or I'm not getting it. And I thought, well, obviously to me it's a capability. But then
mhm,
I, I had arguments with people over this, and academics, and I ended up thinking it's both. It has both, depending on how strategic you look at it, like how high level you go.
Mhm,
Like it can be a resource because if you look at the entire stack of it, how it runs and what it runs
mhm,
operationally, there's a valid argument that it is a resource, but
mhm,
it is also an enabler in a way so that in this following the argument of you take a guitar, you plug it in to your amplifier,
mhm,
and then it changes the nature of its sound, of its music, right?
mhm. Yes.
Basically, you can basically make more of it, right?
Mhm,
It's basically like, you add 1, you get 10 out,
mhm.
right? So I think that also translates what you do with it, right? It's not just like the AI itself that can be both a capability and a resource as a consequence. Do you think that translates to what you apply AI to? So let's say if we now practically speaking, we have AI enabled manufacturing or we have an AI enabled procurement.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Do you think that also changes the nature of procurement and manufacturing because we now think more of the outcome and not the output only?
I think in the broadest sense possible, but I feel very strongly about this. I think that it is a, uh I think it is a creator of market efficiency. So relative to the procurement cycle and purchasing strategies and things, you're
Right.
going markets that were already a race to zero, price competitive, very
Mhm.
very little actual competitive differentiation happening within them, which is like most markets. Um, there, I think it just intensifies that competition and it makes for a more cost effective outcome for companies, which I think is good because as you know, operating by John Brewton, I'm an operator. Like
Right.
I look at company operations as being the profit driver. The product, the
Mhm.
service is revenue driver, how to grow a ton of revenue. But then, you know, I've worked with a ton of companies where I've seen a ton of companies and worked with plenty too, where you can have a company that's doing there are companies that are doing $10 million a year in business
Yes.
and generating more net profit than companies doing 50 million, 100 million in revenues per year. I mean, I'm not saying that is common, but does it exist? Absolutely. And so I think I think that it's you know, that's kind of what I think kind of on that front on that side of things.
No, I totally agree, and I think it has a very positive effect on your bit of economics theory because I know you're a economics buff.
Hmm.
Your production possibilities frontier. Remember that?
Absolutely, I sure do. I sure do.
Exactly.
I also
Yeah.
would say this, I think there's this interesting part of it where, you talk about a purchasing department, okay, and procurement strategy, and say, okay, well, that is clearly a place where that is rife for AI to go in, the models and agents to go in and disrupt that, and
Okay. Yeah.
a lot of
Yep.
that analysis and whatnot. But what I would also say is this: it's not just like, oh, so then assume that no humans are working in that field anymore. What I would say is I think it also creates a great advantage for the most curious and interesting and interested, uh, purchasing professionals and procurement professionals to then take these tools and to just enable them to do their job 100x more efficiently and drive
Yes.
100x more value for their companies. And so
Yes.
I'm also excited about in that realm when we go back to like the capabilities thing and like I look at the human capabilities. My
Mhm.
question is give the 100 greatest procurement people in the world access to all the right tools and models. And yes, we're going to drive towards greater market efficiency and cost savings for companies. But what are they also going to figure out how to do when it comes to supply chains? And what are they going to figure out how is their work and effort when they're not spending their time doing all the laborious, meticulous, you know, review of all the different purchases and all the manual components of those jobs that we used to think about. And all they're thinking about is, okay, now I've achieved this level of efficiency. So what's next? Because just because we achieve more efficiency than we have before doesn't mean that those same motivations that exist for the greatest
Yeah.
procurement professionals in the world, that just ceases to exist. No, they're going to curiously and creatively go develop new ways to drive value for their companies.
And I think the real outliers, the real high performers will want more context.
Yes.
They're not gonna be happy with just, "Alright, this is my box," and this is why I never felt I could work in a normal organization where I'm just put in a box and, "Alright, you're a sales guy, you're a marketing guy." I could have never done that. I did
Yep.
it for 2 years before I studied even after high school, and then I noticed, "Okay, I'm working in marketing communications.
Mhm,
I really wanna know, I'm advertising this product, how does it work? How is
mhm,
it financed?" Right?
mhm.
I think it may be that people become a little or gradually more generalist. Well, it's as in his book. I don't know if you heard about the book Range. You know that book Range?
I've heard of, have not read, could not tell you who the author is.
So in a nutshell, that book argues that there is something called a T profile.
Mhm,
T profile basically you have a large base, right? This
mhm,
is your standard education, and then you have some spikes. Maybe you have more than one specialization. So you're instead of being like really concentrated in one field, you know you have at least a toolbox of critical reasoning skills and problem solving skills, and you can more easily, with the help of AI in the future, you can work your way into and learn and unlearn things more
mhm.
quickly.
Sure.
So the book is not about AI. A book is more about the future of capability, or let's say, job profiles and these job specializations, generalization, specialization. And the idea or the reasoning is that there will be something called a generalist specialist,
Mhm,
right? So I feel we're going that way, even because it's becoming so easy to just with the harness.
mhm.
Right, with your models, your harness, you strap it on, you strap it off, you switch gears.
Yep.
You have your unified context, you have your content operating system.
Mhm,
Uh, and I think where it gets really interesting is when you can break out of the organization and you can communicate. So API outdated, MCP in the future.
mhm.
And
Yep.
right now, I'm building an MCP for my as part of my publication. So for
Mhm,
people so they can use my material and my MD files and whatnot.
mhm,
Um, how do you think? I mean, thinking of MCP because I think it fits very
mhm.
well here. How do you think MCP? What will it do to organizations, and specifically this example of procurement? Let's stay with the procurement example. That ambitious procurement guy who can't settle with that context you want to break out.
Okay, so then, I mean, it's a great question, and what I think about in terms of MCP and the value of it and how it changes things. Um, I think we have to then introduce the topic of enterprise software into the conversation. We have to talk
Yeah.
about legacy. Let's just call enterprise software ERP systems and CRMs. Let's just call it the two big ones. And
That sounds
so
good.
so what I think about the value of MCP and the value is to take Anthropic's harness,
Yeah.
around which we have threads and we have Cowork and we have Claude Code and we have all these tools that and these harnesses and these working surfaces
Yep.
that we can then deploy all these models into to go produce work for us. Um, and so what I see is in the past you would go and you would buy a CRM system or an ERP system, and you would set up the dashboards for yourself, for the different executives, for the different roles in the company, and everyone would go to the dashboard, probably not nearly as much as they said they were going to go to them, but they would go to the dashboard. Dashboard would look the
Yep.
same, it would update with new data and oh, here, look, I have the view of my company, so I can make decisions from that. And then what really happens is that for whatever reason, the underlying data starts to be a little messy and the dashboards become less reliable. And so then what people do is they go in, they say, okay, well, I'm going to go and export this CSV file and I'm going to export this report and I'm going to do all this. And then what am I going to do, Alex? I'm going to go into Excel and I'm going to get down to business and I'm going to really try to produce the reports that I need. So, which is all well and good and incredible work has been done inside of companies using just that approach for decades now.
Until remember that meme of yours, the one meme of yours, until Larry exits the company
Yeah.
and forgets to pass on the
Yes.
password.
Yes.
Big mistake.
That was very funny. That was very, very we should talk about that. Um, so what happens in my experience, what's happening now with MCP and where I see it as valuable is that now rather than think about I'm going to go into a CRM and or ERP and I'm going to perform this task the same way every time and I'm going to go to this dashboard to get my analytics. If
Yeah.
you can connect if you can connect via MCP your Claude desktop application into that CRM or that ERP system,
Yeah.
and you can give it read write access to all the right functions within that system, which is easier said than done. I'm not saying every system can do this, it cannot, but it then gives you this ability to say, hey, hey Claude, go create a quote for me in the ERP system. Go create a quote for me in the CRM system. Go update. Give me a report this morning of everything that we've purchased within this particular vertical over the last week. Tell me who all the suppliers are, how much it costs, blah blah blah. And so what it starts doing is these these connectors, these MCP servers, they enable you to then use your models and distribute them and their agentic output into your
Yeah.
CRM environments, into your ERP environments, and to go perform a lot of tedious manual work, probably more with greater efficacy than you would as a human. Um,
Yeah.
and then the other part of it is that a lot of people don't like it's hard to understand this until you're doing it. But then when you go send the agents out to go do that work for you, then suddenly it's like, oh well, I don't have to do that work right now. So what am I going to work on? Oh well, I'm going to work on writing better performance reviews for my team. I'm
Yeah.
gonna work on new product design. I'm gonna work on that all that stuff that you never get to, but is the most important stuff.
Yeah.
And so so anyway, that's why I think MCP and the ability to connect our data
Yeah.
sources into these models
Very
is
good. Very good.
essential.
All right, John. Here comes number three. Bounded autonomy. We touched on this briefly. Who may act and with what authority?
I think that's so sector dependent, right? If I'm running a hedge fund or a consumer bank versus I'm running a furniture rental business or a t-shirt company, I think who may act and with what authority. If you're in a heavily regulated space, then there's a lot more stipulations and a lot more rules and things that need to be put into place. But I think um, generally speaking, I like the move fast and break things approach, and I like and
Right.
assume you're not breaking laws and creating problems for customers. But I want I want as many people as possible in a company to be able to learn to do more. And usually, I find that people do not learn to do more unless they have the autonomy and freedom to make mistakes. And so I think you now that said, all bets are off then if you're in a regulated space, banks, hospital environment, I mean, all the, different zones where you have to exert more.
Mhm. And I think I mean, number 4 fits here nicely, which is reversibility. You mentioned it,
Mhm.
kind of. So how does the organization contain mistakes? And,
Love it.
how would you if we now look again,
Mhm.
conventional the way we do things now, how
Mhm.
would we do that with AI? What would we put set in place? There are just a couple MD files, a
Mhm.
master node on top of our self-hosted model or models
Mhm.
or council, right? A council of different models. And we would just like set up a couple of MD files for do's and don'ts and reversible and not non-reversible things. So let's say most severe consequences, no misappropriation or there's a data leak, confidential information leak or something.
Mhm.
Number two would be just monetary, and number one would be non-confidential or something like on
Mhm.
that spectrum,
Yeah.
right?
Um, so first of all, I think there's like a whole the level of urgency around these issues grows as you move into one more heavily regulated sectors or public versus non-public companies. Um,
Right.
and so when I think about the reversibility and that side of things, I think yeah, sure, think about markdown files and all these reference points to provide context to the models to understand what to do, what not to do, then how to solve problems when problems arise. But I also think there's then this question of like how are you continuing to train the models so that they also become better at solving those problems over time? And so as they have more context and more do's and don'ts are discovered, as the models will discover more no-nos than you or I will if we spend our time doing something,
Okay.
or they'll discover new ones that maybe we hadn't thought about. And so I think a way to track, document, and then place those new parameters into context is really important. Um, I think everyone worries about the compounding nature and the speed at which the models work. And so, okay, well, if it if it creates one mispricing on one transaction and then doesn't correct that, and then subsequently performs another 1,000 transactions in the next 10 minutes,
Ripples down. It
then
ripples down.
and then
That's
things, and that's once the money's gone, the money's gone. But I think those are really severe concerns.
I mean,
That said, I also think the systems are able to more quickly be updated and changed now because the models too.
yeah, and I think with most people who think of this as a zero sum game, they still do, right? Okay, it's going to take my job, and then boom,
Mhm.
game over. I mean, this is very, very linear. I think unrealistic thinking. I mean, that alone would pose an opportunity for a new job description, like a master curator or something,
Sure.
someone who's in charge of the corporate constitution to maintain it, all these MD files, and just ensure they're up to date, right?
Absolutely.
Because I think when we go from the old days when companies would I mean, over time, people would have accumulated all these values. I mean, they would look all the same over time. Like we're bold, everyone's bold. We're honest, everybody's honest, right? Even these non-exclusive ones, stewardship and boldness and whatever they called. I think it's going to be more. I believe they have to become more sophisticated and deeper because people want to know. Okay, bold, but how, right?
Right.
To what degree, right?
Yes.
to towards like to what end, right? Okay, so I think there's going to be so many just graphs built around these value sets that alone could be at least a single job description or department. I don't know. I just feel because if you think of the organization of the future becoming more akin to a sphere where there's not really like an upper end, a lower end, but it's more like unlimited. And you can change direction because, as you know, in physics, like if something's round, it can change direction, right?
Mm, sure.
That's where our heads are round, by the way, because we can change opinion and
I know. No, that's it.
yeah, I mean that's probably the reason. That's why our thoughts are like circulating around it.
Good. I have a very round head here.
But if you think about it that way, I mean, what are your thoughts here? Is that just too science fiction, or is that even realistic?
I think it's true science fiction. I mean,
Right.
we're shooting rockets up into space and then we're landing them. Like
We
we're
catch it. We're catching them now with chopsticks. That's what we do.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's
What a thought.
it's wild. But
Yeah,
I so no, I don't think it's true science fiction. But
and we have
I
holacracy. I don't know.
think there's also I think there's so then company can move in different directions, but I think and can become new versions of itself. But
Yeah.
what I would also say is this is like when I forget what the company was called, but the company that ultimately became Slack, like they were a
Oh
video
yeah.
game company, and they're making video games, and then they
Mhm.
and then that wasn't really working out, and they had this great communication tool, and people really liked that, and so they built that. So they said we're pivoting, right? We're going to shift and focus on that. We're going to make that the best thing it can be, and then eventually they sell it. I think there is also this thing that company builders and leaders, um, company builders, really. I think entrepreneurs and founders need to understand this too. Like, what is the purpose of the company to build? Like, what are we going to do, and what are we not going to do? Like, not going to do is often more important than what we are
Yeah.
going to do. And
Yeah.
I often find that, like, the companies I really look at and have a really, like, a lot of admiration for, are often those that are just most squarely focused on either doing one thing really well, or they have a very clear set of, uh, design principles around which they only create new products. Like, I mean, Apple would be a good example of that. But the I think it's yes, I think companies can evolve and grow into many different directions, and that there will be, I think that, there will be many more companies now that are, hey, we're Amazon, the bookstore, the online bookstore, and now we're going to take the infrastructure we built to manage that and turn that into AWS, and that's a new,
Yeah.
I think we'll see more of that. Um, but I think for me in my work, the question I often find myself asking folks is, okay, what should we not be doing? Right? Let's not do that. Do we really need to do that? Do we really need to go pursue? Oh, that sounds interesting and creative. That doesn't mean that we should do it. Like the company, it's important for the company to have a purpose and a focus.
Yeah, of course.
Mm.
I think companies will I think it will go both ways. I think because companies also tend to be not survive that long anymore. I think I heard it yesterday was S&P traditional S&P companies 70 years ago about 75 years or something on average.
Yeah.
And now it's down to 15 or 20 years or something.
Yeah.
And it has to do with, more M&A activity and also market dynamics, globalization, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
And I think in the future, with companies not being one thing for everybody, or just this, as you say, this purpose being fixed and like, okay, we build just cars and a specific type of car, or we just ensure that bread's on the table. I think companies discover more what these different things are, like adjacencies. Like, okay, there's bread, there's something else to food because bread is food, right? And food also has is located in a vertical and also in horizontals, and there's an upstream and a downstream, and
Mhm.
and you're also something else to every other supplier and stakeholder in their chain, right?
Mhm.
So it's not just like what you are seeing because you think of yourself like, okay, I'm like the car, I'm at the top of the food chain, in other words.
Mhm.
But you're also at the bottom of the food chain for someone else,
Oh, sure.
potentially,
Yes.
potentially, right? So I think that then dynamic will only increase and accelerate. But I don't think that will lead into just because everybody thinks of everything accumulating into the big tech companies because they own all the infrastructure. I think with more hosted models and the rise of everybody's and I live in Europe. Everybody loves the word sovereignty these days. Everyone wants us to be sovereign this, sovereign that, and I think we will see more with open source, more self-hosting. And I think it's inevitable in the organizational context that companies have their own models and they host this stuff themselves. At least the big companies who can afford it.
Mhm.
Um, what is your can you see anything of that already? I mean, realistically speaking, what you can disclose, like when you are talking to companies,
Mhm.
what do companies effectively do already with AI, like accept sandboxes and testing and playing around and giving people like a ChatGPT license? Like what do you observe?
I think that there is a decisive competitive opportunity for
Mhm.
privately held small to big, small, and mid-market companies over global public scaled organizations. Not that those organizations don't still have immense opportunities, not that they don't have immense amounts of capital to deploy against these issues. But what I would say is you were leading with sandboxes and testing and whatnot. And sure, there's plenty of that. But what I see inside of smaller organizations, especially, and the things that most excite me is that the smaller organization can go from, hey, we want to do this to, hey, 3 weeks later, our data is clean, our databases are built, and now we're actually building production level applications and tools uh, for use within our organization operationally, or for use with with our customers. And so um, I just think I think in it is a ferociously competitive moment. But I think that to the extent that SMB and mid-market companies can become AI native faster than
Yeah,
their competitors, I think it's going to also give them a moment to then become more price competitive, or to take the advantage they gain in the moment to then invest more capital into what is the next disruptive product in their space, and truly create a product that is differentiated. Because I mean, that's the best thing, right? If you can create a
it is.
product that is competitively
It is.
differentiated, and then you can take the profits from that because you can have some greater amount of pricing power than you would otherwise. So
Absolutely.
that's, so I think I would just say that I'm very bullish and excited for SMB and mid-market companies. And um I think we are going to build an entire world of new big companies and new behemoths to look at. Uh,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Which is not to say that you're also not going to have some tier of company out there that are larger than any companies we've ever seen, and have larger market caps than we've ever seen. And I mean, as
yeah.
we know who all those companies are, and we can pick out the startups that are probably going to become those companies in the future too. But
Yeah, I think it goes up and down. There's going to be extremes
mhm,
all across the board. There's going to be a $1 billion unicorn, one person company,
sure.
and there's going to be the multi-trillion-dollar company up north. Let's say.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, like, the $1 billion one person company thing, I mean, yeah, I agree that that's going to happen.
Yeah,
I would also say that, like, I mean, how many years ago was it that Instagram was like a 32 person $1 billion company, and people thought that was nuts, we like they thought they were
yeah,
crazy,
yeah,
that Meta and Zuckerberg were crazy for buying that. So, I mean,
absolutely.
I think there's a, you know, yeah, I think we'll see all the things, and it'll be
Yeah,
really fun to watch.
yeah. We have four more. So now comes the
Okay.
interesting, because I really want to talk with you about corporate organizational memory, because that's something I'm very passionate about. So
Mhm, sure.
we're building, we call it institutional memory. We built it our startup called Ducks AI for the real estate sector.
Smart.
And so here, the next 2 points are about probabilistic reasoning. How does the organization deal with uncertainty? We kind of talked about that because that's what the article is about. But verifiability. How does the organization determine whether something is acceptable? Right?
Accurate,
Because
acceptable. Yeah, define acceptable.
because this kind of touches into this can be related to an audit trail, right? What has the system done with or without humans, or without the supervision of humans?
Mhm,
But then also it touches on ethics in a way, right? What is acceptable? Because it's not just about doing like converting a resource using capabilities into an output or
mhm,
producing a good, right?
mhm,
It can also be okay, for who, like from a business practice perspective, from a monetary perspective, is it acceptable? Is it viable? Right? The three perspectives, like is it desirable? Is it viable? Is it feasible? Right? So those three dimensions, if you will.
mhm.
When you just think about AI now, because I just want to hear that, what we're doing is essentially we're building a closed loop around when people enter a company. Let's look at it from that life cycle. You're onboarded to a company. You basically live through. You have a career. You get promoted, and you learn. You accumulate. You share. You receive. You obtain, but you also share a lot of experience
Mhm.
over time. A lot of this knowledge and experience is kind of, it's not lost, but it's contained, right? It's still there until the moment you basically exit the corporation. And what these novel ways to capture experience do is they ensure that when a company, or upon offboarding, let's call it that, offboarding, um, every project, every program, every portfolio item basically captures everything that led to the completion of that item, right? So every phone call, every email, every drop of a document, every document at least transcript of a meeting that can be recorded is kind of basically it becomes part of this recyclable knowledge.
Yes. Sure.
Failed or not failed, every outcome, right? Every outcome is basically ingested, and then you receive this queryable three-dimensional blob of experience, right?
Sure.
And, so I know that a couple companies are really interested in this because it's really useful for obviously teaching new, employees, but also retaining expert knowledge. When you have someone who's really, like, an expert in one field and he, you know, not available anymore, switches job or employer, and the company really wants to keep that information because it's so invaluable and it costs obviously money to hire new people. What is your do you have any experience with that? Do you observe that kind of because we're building it, but I have heard only about a handful of companies. Like I know a couple banks here in Europe do it. And do you have any
Mhm.
have you had any touch points with that?
Oh, sure, yeah. Yes, I have. I
Yeah.
think that the, preservation of institutional memory,
Mhm.
and then how do you use the preservation of that memory so that as people offboard, the company maintains that knowledge, and that knowledge can be passed along to new people who are onboarding and being trained. Uh,
Right.
so number 1, I wrote an article about this in the last week, and I think it's the
Check it out, guys. Check it
um,
out. Check out John.
well,
Little commercial here. Check
but
out Brewton, by the way.
yeah, but the, no, well, I would say but is very true, is that the most powerful asset I think most of us as individuals have right now and companies have when it comes to this issue and the solving of so many problems and the production of much of our work is the meeting transcript. I think that's
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
I think it's the ability. I mean, look, in my systems, I everything that I all my meetings are recorded. My phone conversations are often recorded. And people know they're being recorded, but I'm actually not recording this.
Good, good.
But I everything is recorded. Um, and I encourage clients to record, you know, things really, everything that's going on and within reason. And the ability of the models right now to say, okay, if you're connected into Plot, if you're connected into Granola, if you're connected into whatever recorder your CRM has, if whatever it is that you're using to record the meetings, the important thing is not the summary notes that Firefly generates for you. The important thing is the transcript,
Yeah.
and to be able to then send and a team of agents into all of the transcripts from a period of time, and to analyze and assess them and look at tonal psychological indicators across them, and to capture all of that knowledge, and then to also analyze and assess it to help you better understand what has been happening across groups of meetings and across different projects. And so I think that to the extent the best thing that a company could do right now would be to get very, very serious and disciplined around the recording of all of their meetings, the
Mhm.
storage of all of those transcripts in one location, and then the building out of directives and skills and things for these models to then be deployed against those transcripts to produce. I think that's what I'm seeing the most of right now. I think certainly there are other ways to capture information and I think there could be a whole conversation just about building data lakes and what data lakes can do with different
Yeah.
types of structured data and unstructured data. But the meeting transcript is very important.
What I'm interested in is, what is like, in terms of innovation, like, what is the most interesting use case you have observed? What you can disclose, like
Hmm?
the interesting stuff, from the clients you work with? What like AI applications, I mean.
Mhm.
What is, like, really, like, some interesting stuff, like, out of the box thinking? So not just, like, building in a GPT wrapper and put dump, like, a chat on top of a
Mhm.
database CRM or something more interesting, like, for instance, communicate with your warehouse only using voice or, I don't know, something, like, really, like, original.
Look, I think there are some projects I'm working on right now that are, I'm working with one company in particular, on their voice agent product
Right.
and being able to begin to deploy voice agents at the, customer experience level, both internal
Mhm.
and external customers, and then also, chat-based agents, but the voice side is really very interesting. I think the next major jump forward where we're all gonna have another like chat GPT moment is whenever the voice first thing like really gets here, like the thing overwhelmingly this is what I will say. Overwhelmingly, the application, the tool, and the thing that people are most like jaw dropped, I have to do that, and then they actually do it and they love it and it changes their workflow. It
Yeah.
it it's Whisper Flow AI, Alec. It's like, you mean I can touch my function key and I can just start talking and telling a prompt, but it's an incredible train here, literally there. Look at that. Look, here. I can just
Yep.
start talking to there. That I just popped in the chat. That was my Whisper Flow, just whoop. And so
Yeah.
but what I would say is the and this sounds so simple, but maybe I'm just too simple about some of this stuff, but what I would say is this: the experience of starting to talk to my computer to tell it what I want, and then it goes and does it. And Alex, it doesn't matter if I'm sitting here at my computer or I'm in bed dictating into it or whatever I am, and then telling it to go perform certain tasks, go to connect to whatever applications or things I'm using. And like the voice side of it is so what happens with voice when you
Yeah.
talk to it is you you are no longer the lazy human who just doesn't wanna type another paragraph. You just keep
Right.
like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah.
and you give it all that context, and so the output and what it comes back with is necessarily
Yeah.
better, and then if you extrapolate that out across full days of work where you're just constantly talking everything to it, like, I think it's I think it is a game changing scenario. And yeah, the robots are coming, and that's gonna be really interesting, especially in manufacturing and, um,
Our
you
last question,
this
because we're running out of time, and, so first, thanks for answering all these questions.
Sure.
You won the grand prize. I mean,
Oh, wow. Wow.
being right, like the right to be right, not the price to be right. No, but, I'm curious, like, with all these, embodied AI coming along, do you
Mhm.
plan requiring, what do you call it, a physical, uh, character or figure AI?
Like an avatar? Or
Yeah, the company is called Figure AI. They
oh,
build these.
figure eight. Oh, okay. Okay.
Do you plan because they get cheaper and cheaper? I think it's like they're like in the
Mhm.
ten thousands of dollars now or
Uh,
20.
yeah.
Do you plan of acquiring one? You're getting one?
Look, I stayed on my BlackBerry until the iPhone was in, like, 3rd generation, and now I love my iPhone. I'm like, I think it's fascinating. I wanna know all about Figure AI and what they're doing and how they're doing it, but, like, I think things are changing so fast that, like, I think if it's really cool and valuable, like, yeah,
Mhm.
I think the concept and the tech will probably move and who knows, maybe they'll become one of the biggest companies in the world, I don't know. But I tend to sit back and watch, and I sincerely mean what I just said, like, a minute ago, like,
Yeah.
talking to my computer and, like, talking all day long to it and dictating in the power of that and what is happening with voice and coming with voice first, like, to me, that's just, like, totally mind-blowing. It's great too because it's really easy to teach people how
Yeah.
to
I'm getting one myself in 27.
cool,
Um,
do it,
and, I'll write about it, about my experiences and how it works
do
and what works, what doesn't. I remember, like, when I got my first, vacuum cleaner robot, and the early ones really, like they were bad. They really, like, really
yeah,
sucked.
yep,
I don't know if you ever had one, but the early models, they would instead of, like, vacuum clean it away, they would just, like, push around the dirt. Remember that?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I do.
you got yeah, you got home, and then basically everything was clean except this one corner, it was like a huge pile of dirt, wet dirt if you had the included vacuum cleaner plus the sweeper, right?
Mhm. No,
Jesus Christ. I remember not Matt, John, I was mixing up names.
that's fine.
You're a big, you play drums, right? You play drums
I
and
yeah,
you
I did. Now I only play drums on, maybe once a month if I take my stepson to a guitar lesson, then I go and
uh,
then in the drum room and bang around, but yes, I love to play the drum.
when you talk I don't know if you remember, do you remember this one punk band, Bad Religion?
Of course, yes.
You
Yeah,
do, right? You do, right?
Hey, Eddie was one
They
of
have
yeah.
the lyrics basically totally reminded of you of this one song called "I Love My Computer." If you
Oh,
have a chance,
yesterday.
listen to that song. Listen to the song. It's basically everything you described is basically like it's part of the lyrics. Check it
Oh,
out.
well, I'll have to. I love Bad Religion. They were a great band. Maybe they're still around, I don't know, but, you know what's actually funny? My stepdaughter recently she went to California this summer, with her boyfriend, and they went to the Vans Warped Tour, but they got to go to it in, oh gosh, where is it? Not Huntington Beach, Long Beach. They went to Vans Warped Tour in Long Beach, which I think is, like, where it started and where, like, a bunch of those bands were all from, and I feel like Bad Religion is an LA band, but, I,
I could be. It could be. Yeah, yeah. But most of the good ones are. It's same with the Offspring. They're still around. Great band.
absolutely, yeah, love The Offspring.
So amazing.
Cool.
Listen, I asked you so many questions. Do you have any questions for me? Because I want to end the interrogation here and stop asking you weird questions.
Yeah, no, in fact, we got a few minutes left here, so I would just say, what is what is next for you? I mean, you wrote, you published your book, like a year or so ago,
Yeah.
and what is next for you? Because now, I know the consulting work you're doing,
Yeah.
and you're doing some consulting work, and then you're also building some products, and then you also, have the academic work. So I'm curious, like, what what do you wanna tease about what comes next and what you're working on next? And these 2 articles were great. It's really fun to see where you are in your thinking and how much
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah. So, I'm really starting, I'm really doing more. There's more to come, more material coming on Substack. There's a new book coming, the second book.
Cool.
The first book called Genetic Strategy, focus
Yeah.
on all these developments inside the company. And the second one is more of it provides the reader with the backdrop to the first book, which is called Beyond the Organization.
Mhm.
MCP, but it's not like a manual book where you can just like the first one was more manual. You read it and you can just learn, and then you can try these things, try them out yourself.
Mhm.
The second book is more, um, I would say, informal. It is you read it and yeah, but it's a bit more 10, 20 years into the future. The first one is like now,
Mhm.
and yeah, and then I have another book which I can't disclose yet, but the second one is like basically done.
Cool.
I need to visualize it, and then I plan to already release it like last month, but I'm gonna do it like I hope by late October.
Cool.
So that's what I'm doing. Then we're building this company called Dux AI. Essentially, it is a deal execution, deal tracker, heavily built with AI from the ground up,
Mhm.
and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm the finishing touches of the alpha beta. Working on UX and UI, and that's very exciting. And then, yeah, I'm working with smaller clients, and but Substack really is. I think it's been a year now. I think we met a year ago, and I think it's been a great ride. Also, when I look, I mean, at your trajectory and your development, and how you evolved. I mean, it's pretty crazy. What's possible in just a year, right?
It is. It is, and it's inspiring and keeps me going, and, got a lot of faith and a lot of hope around all that, so I feel good about it, but, and I'm excited to see what comes next on your end and the next books, and we'll have to talk offline about what comes next with our collaborations, because I really enjoyed doing these 2 articles with you and
Yeah, we
love
should we should we
them.
should we should do that again.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're interested. We should also talk about doing like a biweekly or something, maybe like a
Mhm.
news format or so, office hours. I don't know, maybe something like that.
We can talk we can get on here and talk about the third rail of politics and business for an hour.
You live in the right place. You live in. I mean, I can say that you live in Washington, right? It's fair.
I
It's
do,
allowed.
I do, but neither me nor my wife are in politics, I will say that. But I do.
Right, right. But I mean, yeah, it's a very interesting place and interesting time to be
It is.
alive.
It sure is. Alright, well,
All right.
Alex, thank you so much, my friend. This was amazing. Thanks. I really appreciate you, and it was so fun to do these 2 articles.
Same, John. Same, John. We keep in touch, and for everyone else, thanks for joining, and please follow, subscribe to the Rage Operating by John Burton and myself, Alex Strategy Stack.
Thank you, everyone,
All
for being
right,
here the whole time. Y'all stayed. Appreciate you. Thanks so much. Have a great
periods. Have a good one. Bye, bye, everyone. Bye.